97.7 Dundalk FM. Town Talk.
Bagatelle and Liam Riley, of course, and Johnny set them up. A great local story behind that song. I told you it was a belter. Anyway, I'm playing it this morning because at a ceremony over the weekend, Maeve Macaulay from Blackrock was unveiled as the first recipient of Dundalk School of Music's scholarship, honouring Dundalk's finest, Liam Riley. And the announcement coincided with what would have been his 68th birthday weekend. So well done to everybody involved in that. And we're going to talk now about an initiative that I know Liam would have been fully supportive of, as I'm joined on the line by veteran musician Dave Browne, who is the Secretary General of Ceol Éireann, a not-for-profit company set up by Irish music professionals for Irish music professionals. Dave, good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you? I'm
good. And you?
Yeah, very good, very good. Nice morning down here in Dublin.
Yeah, not so bad up here either, and that makes a change. Listen, Dave, I'm going to ask you to tell us a little bit about Ceol Éireann, and most particularly because it shares its name with another organisation that does something similar, but it's very much confined to traditional music, and you are not.
Well, yeah, I mean, the hard thing to believe, Marissa, is that like the Irish Film Board, you can see the successes that they've had over the weekend with the Oscars and everything, and how perfectly that's gone for them. And it's hard for people to believe that there is no board in Ireland for music. So you have the Irish Film Board, you have Bord Ishkavara for fish, you have Creature for, all these different state bodies, and it's not only just state bodies, set up to do this. Mm-hmm. There's none for music, which I found astounding, and as did some of my colleagues. So we don't really have an official body set up in Ireland. We do now, but we haven't had up to now a body that was responsible for kind of even, the sales of Irish music abroad. Like Culture Ireland would be for tourism, or any of those kind of things. So we just really needed to, and especially coming through COVID, there were so many different groups that kind of came together, and there was a massive camaraderie between the musicians. It was just that, in all of our dealings that I had anyway personally with the department and the government through the pandemic, proved that they really wanted one body that they could talk to that would kind of be representative of the music industry in Ireland and all of its facets.
And that is extraordinary when you point it out, because, as you said, we have a dedicated film board we have had for some time, and other areas, and yet we've been famed for our musicianship for a lot longer than we have a lot of those other things that you mentioned.
Absolutely, we've been punching above our weight, since the Clancys before them and since in America and all across the world, and there just isn't a coherent plan or body or mission in Ireland. Not only now to get the music sold abroad and to make it like a global commodity, which it should be, but also to nurture new talents coming up. I mean, if you could imagine, recording albums is not as expensive as it used to be. That's the upside of the modern technology, and the downside being it's not as, you can't monetize it as well as you used to. But you could imagine, for the price of one movie, how many albums you could make in Ireland, and then how you would get that, through proper representation and through access to proper industry professionals, how you would monetize the sale of that music worldwide, and to be responsible for us as a country and our music. And as you say, rightly so, we've been punching above our weight for a long, long time.
And in a way your timing is perfect, because as you said, it's a lot cheaper to make albums, and therefore they're not as lucrative. But as a result of that, musicians have, and for a number of years now, have been forced to go back out on the road, which is great, because that's, means the audience get to see them. And I remember somebody saying during the lockdown, when it all ended, we were going to have something like, they had back in the 20s after the Spanish flu. It was going to be, the roaring 20s, and we were going to have the scream and whatever it was. But, and you can see it already. There's like so much live music happening. So now is a good time time to be, doing something about it and trying to market it properly, but also ensure that those that are engaged in this industry are afforded the rewards they deserve.
Correct. And to be clear, we aren't a musicians' union. We are, setting out to be the representative of the created material, as it were, and its protection and its monetization globally. So we modelled ourselves as we have some great correspondence with UK Music, which are a body set up in the UK for just this. So they promote, British music worldwide. That's what they do. So we're we're different because obviously the situation in Ireland is different everywhere else. We have different challenges to overcome and a different repertoire of musicians, as it were. But this is something that, many other, if not all countries have except us. And that's what we found most astounding about it. So, that's the goal here. As I say, everybody knows talented musicians. Everybody does. And it's just become so much harder in Ireland, especially, to create a future in that industry. So what we would like to do, we would look to be in the position in the very near future to be, able to give these great bands access to the stuff that they need access to, because musicians aren't always inclined to be business people. And unfortunately, the music business, in its most part, is a small M and a capital B. So,
indeed, and I suppose more so than when you yourself would have started out, what would be nearly 30 years ago, where people maybe did have got signed to a record label and were assigned a manager, and all of that sort of things was looked after. And it was always, when you two had their success, the fifth member was Paul McGuinness, and he was doing all that very important stuff. But because that's gone now, and because, as you said, people can release stuff independently, which is great, then they may not be au fait with the other side of it that is, so critical.
Well, correct. And if they make a brilliant record and they want to market it around the world, they're not supposed to really be experts at that. And I know anybody can put up an album on Spotify, and there's loads of issues with all that kind of streaming royalties and radio play and everything else that need to be addressed in Ireland if we are to have a thriving music industry here. So we have to concentrate on all of those things as well to make the lot of the musicians. And I'm not saying, easier, but look, there's such a talent here, and we just feel as an organisation that it's not being represented properly, it's not being monetised properly for the artist and for the state. I want to point that out too. I don't have the figures to hand, but the most recent survey I could find from IMRO in 2017 said that the music business, accounted for €700 million to the Exchequer. So you could imagine if there was a proper, united sales force, as it were, and kind of like a GAA setup where everybody's brought up through the ranks, they have access to other musicians. You can do dojos where, established musicians sit and work with young people, get all that coming up. And then when these fantastic bands come, they have somewhere they can go to be funded to kind of get a record made, and access to the music professionals to make that happen. And then once you have all that collective industry and catalogue of work, it should be being sold correctly around the rest of the world on behalf of the industry of Ireland.
And your organisation, Ceol Éireann, Dave, it's been founded by both sides of that music industry that you've just referred to. You yourself, a musician, there's other musicians as well involved, but there are also people from the the financial side and the promotion side.
Yeah, correct. Look, our goal here in Ceol Éireann is to get as many stakeholders involved as possible. So agents, promoters, collection agencies, publishers, record labels. We're trying to get everybody together under the same umbrella with a common goal. Now, that doesn't mean everybody's, we're too long in the tooth now to be dreaming of a utopia, but surely if there were some issues needed to be resolved or some things that can be fixed, if it was all in-house and done under the auspices of the one organisation, we really feel that the whole thing could be streamlined and would behave an awful lot better.
Is there anywhere in the world, on the planet at this stage, that Irish music hasn't touched and that maybe you do need to reach out to and introduce them to us?
Well, correct. Yeah, that's a very good point. We would research things like that, and certainly if there were territories, as you'd say, that haven't been exploited properly. Look, I personally feel that none of the territories have been exploited properly. That's what I would say. Not in the last 5 to 10 years, anyway. I think there was a golden age, like you said, and now that the digital kind of era has come in, it's just a matter of selling and marketing music differently. I still believe that. I mean, there was a stage there when all the music was free and all this kind of stuff. But most people, I think now, for the most part, do use streaming services and do pay for that. And it's then down to how do we change how that system works. So we have plenty of ideas and we have plenty of strategies in place in Ceol Éireann to make that kind of thing happen. But, if you have a band that can even, make 10 or 15,000 or 20,000 euro every time they release an album, and then they can go and make another one. That's what they have that money there for. And then obviously from touring and all that kind of stuff, it helps their revenue. But my point being that if they could make even that small amount of money making an album, they can afford to make another one, and that in itself nurtures the art itself.
So what is it, Dave, that you are going to offer them? Because I'm just thinking, most gigs you go to now, that's where they're selling their merchandise, and usually at the door, and I'd like to think that they, the takings are pretty much theirs when they leave in the evening.
Well, I mean, the thing is, as I say, it's a huge mammoth task we have ahead of us, but we have so many good people involved on the advisory board of Ceol Éireann that we can tap into to help us make sure that all of these things are considered and flushed out. And I don't, by the way, see it being like a 5 or 10 year process. Obviously, it will to get us to being a pre. But I'm not. I just want people to know we're not expecting this to drag on for years. We want to get change, and we want to start doing it now because it's far too late in the day, in my opinion.
Okay, so how are you looking for people to get involved, and who indeed are you reaching out to come and join you?
Well, we as an organisation have reached out to some of the bigger stakeholders in the Irish music industry, and we are very hopeful and confident to have some positive results from those correspondence imminently. In the next 6 weeks to 2 months, and then outside of that, as I say, we just want people to register their support. It's very simple. So if you're a musician, if you're a publisher, you're anything to do with the music industry in Ireland at all, just go to the website, which is ceoleireann.ie, and register. It's free to do it, but all it means is you're registering your support and you're on our database, and then we can, formulate plans, keep people informed with a quarterly newsletter and things like that. And then as the thing progresses, we can figure out ways then of everybody becoming more and more involved. Okay,
and does that include radio stations?
It does include radio stations, yes, absolutely it does.
And I have to say, it is something that's very, very close to our heart here at Dundalk FM. I mean, we have a commitment, and it's part of our licensing agreement to pay 30% Irish, but I know, again, we are well, and certainly on Town Talk here, we are well exceeding that, and I know presenters here that are 100% Irish and won't deviate from it. Well,
that's it now, because you imagine that on a much more national scale. And the best way to do that, I believe, is more carrot than stick. And I think if we can all be in the same room and say, look, guys, we all want this to be vibrant. We all want it to work. We're all supporting each other now. Will you help us make this happen? I think it's a much better situation to be in than legislating for these things.
Absolutely. Listen, Dave, before I let you go, I alluded to it a number of times. You've a long career now in the music industry, and obviously people will remember you most with Picture House. Are you still performing, or is this what you're doing now?
Well, I still play. Yeah, I still gig, and I have a wedding band going for the last few years, which has been great. I really love playing, and it's a great opportunity to do that, the Controversial All-Stars. And then outside of that, Picture House, I did our last ever concert Picture House in the Liberty Hall Theatre last November. And again, this is because, even from personal experience and lots of other people that we talk to, and I'm sure you know this yourself and a lot of your listeners would, it's very, very difficult to make a living as an original band in Ireland. And I would be amiss to say that that's not one of the reasons why I feel that it should be changed. and it should be a better, much more affluent space for people to be in.
Absolutely. And, I know a lot of musicians, and very, very few of them are making a living as an original artist. They all have their, day job, which is the bread and butter, and anything else on top of that is the jam. So, right, listen, Dave, I'm going to go way back. And it's funny because this track I'm going to play, which is possibly Picture House's biggest single, Sunburst, I don't know how many years ago that was, but that is still regularly featured on our playlist here on Dundalk FM. So I think that speaks volumes.
Well, thank you very much for that. That's very much appreciated. Thanks for having me on.
Dave, it's been an absolute pleasure. And just before I let you go, will you remind people how they can get in touch with yourselves?
Yeah, just please, it's the website, it's ceoleireann.ie, EOLEIREANN, Ceol Éireann. That's Music Ireland in Irish.ie, and register there with us.
Dave Browne, General Secretary, thank you so much.
Thanks very much indeed.
.7 Dundalk FM. Town Talk.